Morning, this is Coach Duncan just saying hi. Actually, I apologize. Getting a lecture in 15 minutes with Screenocast or Screencast-O-Matic is tough for me for some reason. Yesterday, we were talking about the marketing research process. We talked about some of the 5 steps. We talked about defining the problem, which maybe I didn't emphasize this enough. Before you, and most of my lecture is about going to a survey to solve a problem. You have to define the problem so you can write good questions in your survey that help you find the right solution for the problem. And so you have to start with the end in mind, if that makes sense. And so knowing the problem and defining, you know, the exact nature of that problem is going to help you when you create the survey. And the reason I focus on the survey is because it's the cheapest, most used, regardless of how simple it is or how complex it is. It's just the simplest, cheapest way to get primary data. We talked about gathering data, primary and secondary data. The reason, if you can, you're going to do primary is because it's usually cheaper and it's usually trustworthy. You can control it, if that makes sense. So you know the weaknesses of the data itself. When you buy it, you don't know how good it is. You don't know what went into it. Then you're going to have to change how I say it. The book doesn't really say it this way, but how I say it is you're going to take all these data points and you're going to organize them into useful bits of information. And so then you can analyze the data to see what it's telling you the solution needs to be. Once you've done that, and there's organization in this to change this just straight data into something useful, you're going to come up with some recommendations, and then you're going to have to implement the plan, if that makes sense. And then I would always add, evaluate and modify as needed. I would always put that at the end of any business plan. In this case, I'm going to jump to here. We'd already talked about observation and point of sale, data collection, and now I want to talk about experimental method. We use this different ways, but in this case, we're talking about the actual racetrack here. Um, and what we did, one of the companies that I worked for in a previous life, um, we we knew some of our stores were successful. We knew some of them weren't, and we needed to test what the best store was, and in this case, the best layout of the store. We had an idea of, which was completely different than this, by the way, of what worked, and we were changing chaotically to an idea, but we couldn't prove that that idea worked. And so this, we actually changed 4 stores around in different parts of the country, and we just tested the difference between this type of store compared to the old style store. And this, changing that one thing, just this racetrack design is what they call it, forcing customers to come in one direction, go around the store to see all these end caps in different departments before they can check out, and controlling the flow and direction. So they, what ended up happening is they would pick one extra item per customer transaction, made my transaction average go up $2 a transaction, and it just changed. You can't imagine how big a deal that is profit wise. And now, if you do that for one store, you test it here and just test one thing, and now you can move that to the nation of stores, and that $2 times 3,000 transactions a day times 7 days a week times 52 weeks a year times 500, 1,000, 2,000 stores. Guys, we're talking about millions of dollars. It's a huge deal to control it, and you can do this with cost. You can do this with a whole. It's just a different way of collecting data, if that makes sense, and ended up being really effective for this company. Um, and that's called experimental when you're just testing one thing and you're finding a way, you're controlling the variables to find if it's a better way. Once you do that, you need to analyze the data, which usually for me means organizing it into some kind of useful categories or connections of data. And then some of the data you're going to find out is statistically it's accurate and it's real, but it's statistically not important. And probably the one that jumps out at me is supply and demand. If I have a market here and I want to know how to price my quart of strawberries, and I just randomly pick, people at a farmer's market. What should I price strawberries? And I happen to talk to a family, so I get five inputs of what they would price strawberries at, and it happens to be a family that is allergic to strawberries. Now I have a decent size sample here that I'm pulling information. Let's say there's five of them, and I couldn't even give this family free strawberries. That, if I looked at the individual price, um, might tell me exact wrong answer on how to price my strawberries. And so now if I make my sample larger and I start realizing, hey, some people value strawberries at $4 a quart, some at $5 a quart, some at 350. And then I can find my ultimate price of where I sell the most strawberries at the most profitable price point. Not necessarily the highest price point because you have to multiply that by how many sales you get. But I can literally just analyze the data. If I only look at individual results, it might mislead me. But if I get a sample to match the market, now and I organize that data to where I can throw out some of the stuff and I can focus on other things. Um, Now I can find, in this case, a pricing solution. Hopefully that makes sense. After you analyze the data, and the case I just used was what should the price of strawberries be? Maybe I have different price points. Maybe I need to go research what other farmers are selling theirs at. There can be more data collection to this, by the way. Um, but that customer evaluation, which I would do through a survey, by the way, might be part of the process. After I do all that, now I need to come up with a solution. Where should my strawberries be located at this farmer's market? What is the cost of each location? How much can I price the strawberries at to get a certain amount of sales that covers my rent or my cost of that location? And now I can start to put things together. But you have to organize the data to do that. And after you have, and a solution kind of comes out from the data, um, now you can recommend a solution, if that makes sense. This will be the next part of the market research doing the report. But what I wanted you to do is right now we're just doing the steps of the process. And after you organize the data to hopefully find a solution, now you recommend the solution. And now going a little faster, here's what the report would look like. I think this class we kind of talked about doing a marketing plan very similar to that. And again, we'll cover this maybe next section, to be honest. So I'll go in more in depth, or review, maybe is a better word to say, next section. And then the last step of the process of collecting, organizing, analyzing, and solving your problem, that process is applying the results. In your assignment, you thought there was a problem with the website. Hopefully you made questions that helped get customers' opinions of that part of the website you wanted to correct. And now analyzing those questions, you would find a way to make that a better process or website experience for your customers, if that makes sense. Um, and then you apply the results. A lot of times that would look like a business meeting. The CEO now takes your solution, says, "Yep, that's what we're doing. That makes sense to me." Um, and then you come up with an implementing plan. A lot of times he would be involved with, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Sorry it went so long. Um, and I think I just have you go through a situation and try to apply what these different steps, um, the real world situation, which step is it describing. That's what the today's assignment will be. Um, Again, apologize that I couldn't get this on the one video. Have a good day. Be safe.